A race of stonecutters, artisans, and engineers. They invented machines and built elaborate underground cities where they researched powers to rival the gods themselves. And then, at a time we are still not sure when, they disappeared. The whole people, all at once, leaving behind only their works. Unlike most works of fiction, the dwarves in the Elder Scrolls series aren't tiny men and women mining for gold underneath a towering mountain. The dwarves, or deep elves in the Elder Scrolls series, are much like the other elven races that roam on Tamriel. They have pointy ears and they speak in similar mannerisms, yet we know surprisingly little of what exactly they were up to, where they came from, and even less about their current whereabouts. Some say that they all died. Some say that they simply disappeared one day. I, however, believe that there is a far greater explanation. A tale of godly proportions is hiding. You just have to know where to look. Allow me to explore and uncover the secrets left behind by Tamriel's most elusive people. Welcome to the Nexus, a place where stories converge. As a starting YouTube channel, I appreciate you watching. But before we start, a big thank you to the Epic Nate 315, for his video was a great help while researching this topic. Anyway, enough with the formalities. Grab your sweet roll and I hope you enjoy. In the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, the Dwemer are central to the main quests involving the Heart of Lorkhan, or Kagrenak's tools, what the hell? Players explore the ruins of Arkentand, and whatever the hell that word is, both being Dwemer ruins. In these ruins we see a variety of technological equipment that we don't recognize from anywhere else in Tamriel. The last living Dwemer, Yagrum Bagarn, provides insight into the disappearance of his people. He has spent decades researching what has happened to his people, and they seemingly just disappeared into thin air. The only reason Yagrum himself didn't disappear was because during their disappearance, Yagrum wasn't on the mortal plane. Probably off fishing on some oblivion plane maybe. He talks to us about the practice of reality manipulation through sound and vibrations, something that the Dragonborn and the Greybeards have been shown doing. But now that the Dwemer have found a way to make technologically based shouting as a practice, they called it tonal magic. And with these tones, they were able to create whatever they wanted. In the next game, Oblivion, the Dwemer legacy appears through the Dwarven Orrery at the Arcane University, which players repair during the related quest. Now follows a tiny excerpt from the official guild correspondence in the year 432 of the Third Era. My thanks for the latest trove of information. I understand it is difficult to decipher these glimpses remotely. Archmage Travern has not deemed it necessary for you to make the long trip from Morrowind to visit the Orrery personally. From what you have told me, I suspect that not only might it be possible to return the Orrery to a functional state, but we may unlock features that have been hidden to us until now. I have long wondered about the functions of the console separate from the primary mechanism. These plans you have sent suggest it might have significant use. I have seen repeated references to Maser and Secunda, and they are clearly connected or related in this particular section of the Orrery. To what end, I cannot be sure, but I would very much like to find out. If your excavation continues, I wonder if you might be able to send me some spare parts. The council has authorized you to send me several cogs, as well as coherer, a cylinder, and one of those fascinating tubes. Formal papers for the shipment should arrive sometime next month. You know how the council tends to drag its feet even when it can finally make a decision. Thank you again for your assistance with the Orrery. Perhaps someday I'll have time to visit Aldrun and see these ruins in all their native glory. The Orrery is strong evidence of the Dwemer people looking beyond their own mortality and even that of others. They look to the stars above, wondering how exactly it all works. Moving on to Skyrim, the Dwemer influence is extensive, with key quests like Lost to the Ages and Unfathomable Depths. Notable ruins include Blackreach, Mdzulft, and Alftand. The only appearance of Dwemer in Skyrim is added by Ghost of, though this ghost is technically a dark elf due to in-game limitations. Make of this what you will. In the MMO Elder Scrolls Online, there are several Dwemer-themed quests and dungeons across Tamriel, particularly in Hammerfell Morrowind, which makes sense with what we know about where they used to live. While we're at the topic of Hammerfell, I've always liked the story of the Dwemer Lord simply throwing his hammer and dubbing the ground it landed on as Hammerfell. It's such a clever way to showcase the practicality of these people. A hammer fell here, so the land is now called Hammerfell. Do you get it? You get it, right? Because the hammer fell. From what I could gather, the earliest documented appearance of the Dwemer in Tamriel was when the elves arrived of the Summer Isles to Tamriel. We don't know if the Dwemer hailed from the Summer Isles. Did they hail from that continent? Did they hail from Tamriel? Did they beat the other elves to Tamriel? Or did they come from a separate place altogether? To me, having them just be there already feels like a fantastic way to cast these folk into even more mystery. We don't know how exactly they came about, neither do we know where they went. For all we know, these Dwemer were the forefathers of every other elven race. Maybe one of them found something particularly attractive about a wild cat or lizard. Moving on from that train of thought, I will read a little short story from the Elder Scrolls lore book, where a scholar named Dwell Galeen talks about his findings when he discovered and researched the Dwemer inquiries. In the deep halls far from men, forsaken red mountains and twisted kin, hail the mind, hail the stone, dwarven pride, stronger than bone. My life's work has been dedicated to investigating the Dwemer, their dubious history and their mysterious banishment. My goal with this text is sharing my findings and conclusions based on 80 years spent studying their unique architectural remains. The migration of the Deep Elves from their ancestral Dwemereth, now Morrowind, is generally accepted as fact. Recorded history supports this, specifically mentioning the Rokurn clan's refusal to join King Dunmark in forming the First Council, and their subsequent exodus to Hammerfell. The architectural premise is also sound, as the building habits of the dwarves adapt and change, albeit slowly and in subtle ways, over time and land. I propose that some of these differences are stylistic as well as practical. Traditional viewpoints suggest that the Vardenfell Dwemer were the most prolific of their kind. Based on my excavations throughout Skyrim, Morrowind and High Rock, I am not sure if this is the case. While Vardenfell is almost cluttered with dwarven ruins poking through the surface of the landscape, the construction of those ruins is fundamentally different from the majority of what I've observed elsewhere. Furthermore, as we delve into Vardenfell ruins, we notice that their internal structure is quite different. While major civics and operational chambers are found near the surface of Vardenfell ruins, this is not specifically the case on the mainland. Minor passageways and storehouse rooms are near the surface, but more important locations do not occur until we explore much deeper. Because such major locations are well hidden in Dwemer ruins outside of Morrowind, many scholars believe that they were in fact not present in ruins outside that province. This premature conclusion has led some to believe such sites to be mere outposts. My research has shown this not to be the case. A few theories may explain this difference. Perhaps clan architects simply had their own styles and preferences when it came to civic planning. This seems only somewhat likely, as dwarf techniques were based on empirical study, and there was likely little to no room for creative interpretation when it came to building techniques. Geological makeup on the terrain almost certainly played a role, especially in regions like northern Skyrim, where the ground near the surface is often very rocky and frozen, as opposed to the volcanic substratum common in Vardenfell, or the ubiquitous aquifers found in Hammerfell. It is possible that the dwarven architects in the north were not able to excavate large structures until reaching a more pliable strata. This scholar would like to suggest, however, that many structures west of Morrowind were built after 420 in the First Era. When the clan Rocken left Vardenfell, it seems evident that several clans broke off to create their own settlements, choosing to live in greater isolation than their eastern brethren. This theory is particularly fascinating because it leads me to believe that the dwarven architects may have developed even more elaborate methods of hiding their strongholds over time. This then opens the distinct possibility that undisturbed dwarven archaeological sites exist throughout Tamriel, even in southern areas like Cyrodiil or Blackmarsh, where dwarves are not believed to have ever had a significant presence. Though we should not get carried away on flights of fancy, one could extrapolate this logic to suggest that some dwarven clans were living among us for much longer than previously believed, perhaps well beyond the disappearance during the War of the Red Mountain in 700 of the First Era. The limited written record supports the perception of the Deep Elves as culturally revering the pursuit of logic and science. This stands in stark contrast to the belief system of most other mere cultures. When we imagine a society structured around such central ideology, it seems reasonable that prolific scholars, especially in the fields such as mathematics, metallurgy, or architecture, would be elevated to a social status like that of clergy in any more mystical inclined cultures. The idea is supported by the fragments of Dwemer's texts recovered from a colony in Skyrim, Irkintand, which is believed to be associated with Clan Rockern. My translation is as follows. Risen by order cousin of privilege Kulek of Shizelain, privileged duties. Clan home building Kohan Kultura, tradition to hailed world shaver. This should roughly translate to raise granted cousins, Kolek of an untranslatable word, privilege with duties for family home building in Kohan Kultura, tradition to father Mundus Shaper. Some scholars interpret this evidence as Dwemer worship of Mundus, but I do not agree. My translation of this passage suggests that a respected Dwemer by the name of Kolek was promoted to a civic position, probably as a tonal architect. The latter half of the fragment suggests that Kolek's position requires him to build in a specific style. The term Hogen Kultura has thus far eluded me, but I believe it may be the name of such a style. It's possible that there were several styles differing in their construction principles and typical structure. One earmark of what I believe was the prevalent Dwemer style among northern clans was a feature I call the deep venue. Deep venues are often made up of one or more expansive natural caverns in which several other structures occur. Structures within the venue may be carved from stone itself or freely erected upon the cavern floor. The largest and most impressive venues, such as those in Bartzamatz, may even feature roads wide enough for 10 large men to walk shoulder-meet shoulders along it. Arcanex are typically smaller structures. Very few have been properly studied before disruption by grave robbers or greedy adventurers. But those few undisturbed sites have contained a surprising collection of magical objects, such as soul gems, alchemic concoction, and magical texts. Some scholars take this as evidence that the Dwemer did, in fact, dabble in the magical arts. Based on what we know of their culture, as well as the fact that most arcanics are minor structures compared to the other common fixtures, I would suggest that these were mere centers of study and nothing more. Perhaps the dwarves established these halls as a means to study men and mer, which surely seemed as alien to them as Dwemer seems to us today. Great animalculatories can be found in many dwarven strongholds. These were the factories where the centurions and various other constructs were built. I have hoped to study these chambers for clues and by means of which those mysterious automata are given life. But these same guardians make them especially difficult and dangerous areas to explore. My studies and these texts have focused heavily on the fact that Dwemer archaeological sites west of Vardenfell seem to be built at much greater depths than their counterparts near the Red Mountain. I believe there was a specific threshold to which dwarven excavators would dig before the construction of vital structures began. I have referred to the threshold as the geocline, but I have found that to be redundant with the deep venue of a colony. Still, there is some variation in the actual depth of a deep venue, whereas the geocline is always the marker where I reason the city proper begins. Tunnels and chambers are more shallow depths, while often grand in their architectural style, appears to have served little in a way of critical civic purpose. Above the geocline, surplus stores of food, warehouse chambers that may have been used in trading with nearby surface settlements, and barracks for topside patrols are common. These tunnels, I have observed, can meter in seemingly more random pattern than those planned structures beneath. I hypothesize that this may be due to the unpredictable nature of any excavation. Even to a race as clever as the Dwemer, surely unexpected deposits of stone or geological events could make an effort difficult. I think that these haphazard tunnels are often the result of the search for suitable substratums to build within. I have found in a small number of ruins references to a geological anomaly or place known as Val Zardum Din. This is intriguing because the term not only appears in a few tablet fragments, but also specifically on ornate metal frames in the deepest reaches of Altans, Irkentant, and Midshalift, strongholds of Skyrim. I have yet to decipher the meaning of these elaborate carvings, but consider it highly strange that they occur in the deepest part of each of these ruins. The most reasonable translation of Val Zardum Din I have managed to decipher is Blackest Kingdom Reaches, but I cannot imagine what that means. I suspect there may be some pattern I am failing to notice. This creeping doubt has haunted my career in recent years. I have begun to doubt if I will ever unravel some grand secret of the dwarves in my lifetime, though it lies under my nose, or should I say, under my feet. I firstly wish to apologize for my pronunciation. I sometimes feel like a Khajiit when speaking these dwarven terms and names. But as you may have noticed, not even the most profound scholars of Tamriel are in agreement of these dwarves. If they are already bickering about the differences between Skyrim, Vardenfell and the Red Mountains, what hope do we have of ever solving this odd mystery? The question lingering on everyone's mind is, of course, where are they? We know that they used some kind of spell or effect that swept plane-wide. We know this because Euron has not been affected by it, since he was on another plane at the time. We also know that the various dwarven tribes all disappeared at once, meaning warring factions haven't tried to return. This either means that wherever they went, they either could not return, made peace and decided to stay, or they all died. The most popular theory is that the Deep Elves were simply cast into oblivion, never to be seen again. Another theory states that the Daedric or Adric were so jealous and frightened of their rapidly evolving technology, so scared in fact, that they decided to intervene and wipe them out. Now, as you may have noticed throughout this video, I'm not a fan of these theories. Shocker, I know. I tend to believe that the dwarves disappeared due to their meddling with a very powerful artifact known as the Heart of Lorkhan. Sometime in the First Era, the Dwemer discovered the heart while excavating under the Red Mountains. Kagrenak, the chief tonal architect and the high priest of the Dwemer, began to experiment with the heart. He created 3 tools: Keening, a dagger; Sunder, a hammer; and Wraithguard, gauntlets, to work with the heart. He hoped to use the heart as a power source, and he wished to improve the Dwemer race. The plan was interrupted by the arrival of Nerevar, together with his generals Vivek, Almalexia, Sosasil, and Dagoth, and an army of Chimmer. Nerevar and Dagoth fought the Dwemer king and Kagrenak in the heart chamber beneath the Red Mountain. When the Dwemer were bested in combat, Kagrenak used the tools on the heart, and the entire Dwemer race vanished. Now people say that by using the heart, Kagrenak doomed his people to disappear or ascend them to godhood. It's clear that the heart was involved in the disappearance. To what end, we might never know. But with the next Elder Scrolls games allegedly being set in Hammerfell, we don't know what lore we might be able to discover there. In this chapter, I want to preface that this is purely my own opinion. So if you disagree, well, deal with it.
What? What the f?
It's clear that the Dwemer folk are supposed to be mysterious. It's only by digging through the lore that we find out that the Heart of Lorkhan was somehow involved in their disappearance. I personally love these types of tales shrouded by so much unknown we almost have to assume certain things for theories to be able to work. Take Euron for example, or the Ghost in Solstheim. They might not even really be dwarves. The Ghost is a dark elf due to in-game limitations, but what if it's some elaborate way of just making fun of us? We assumed these two to be honest about who they are. For all we know, they could be lying through their, be it ghostly, teeth. When writing stories about races where no one knows where they came from or where they went, you can ultimately get really creative. Their existence is so enigmatic, so who knows what tales are true? A writer could potentially pick up the pen, write stories about a soaring steam-powered dwarven dragon. It doesn't need to be true in order to fit. Over time, the deep folk would have blurred into such obscurity that it allows for wonderful world building. If you hadn't noticed by now, I love the dwarves. I tend to make all my characters vaguely connected to them. My main in ESO is a dwarven archaeologist excavating all that he can near the Red Mountains. So why add a folk like this to your lore? Short answer? They're pretty cool. The long answer? Well, it allows for mystery, and mystery keeps your reader, your player, or your audience in general engaged. Those who are invested will look for answers, they'll craft theories, and they'll make, well, lore videos. The dwarves disappeared after one of their ranks meddled with forces beyond his understanding. His army was losing and seemingly at risk of being defeated. In a desperate attempt for victory, something happened to the deep folk, all at once and everywhere. Now they might be gods, or they might all be trapped in a massive mechanical golem that may never move again. Well, that'll be it for this video. I hope I could shed some light on the Dwemer for you. Thanks for watching guys, and I hope you enjoyed your sweet worlds.